Welcome back. Today we're focusing our attention on a musical entity that has managed to remain relevant, enigmatic, and surprisingly consistent for nearly half a century.
We're talking about The Cure.
Yes, The Cure. It's early 2026, and when you look back at the landscape of alternative music, it's impossible to ignore the trajectory of Robert Smith and his band.
It really is. I mean, their timeline, it just defies the usual laws of gravity in the music industry.
It does. A band that forms in the punk explosion of the 1970s is usually, long gone by now. Or maybe they're touring the cabaret circuit, but The Cure, they're in a very different position.
Oh, a completely different league. It's a remarkable case study in longevity and artistic integrity, really. We're looking at a group that is still winning major awards.
Right now, in 2026.
Exactly. Just this year, at the 68th Annual Grammy Awards, The Cure took home Best Alternative Music Album for Songs of a Lost World.
And Best Alternative Music Performance for the track alone.
Mm-hmm. And that's a testament to a career that has maintained its creative vitality for decades. They're not just relying on past glories.
It really puts things into perspective when you think about the span of time we're covering. You have a band that started as, a school project in Crawley, England.
Back when Richard Nixon was still in the White House.
Exactly. And here they are, over 45 years later, winning Grammys for brand new material.
It's incredible. And the current lineup, as of January 2026, still has that core. You have Robert Smith, of course.
And Simon Gallup, Jason Cooper, Roger O'Donnell, and Reeves Gabrels. It's a lineup that's seen shifts, it's seen changes, but the core ethos has really remained intact.
And Robert Smith is the only constant member through that entire history. That's the key.
That's the anchor.
It is. And what's significant here, what we should really explore, is the pattern of their evolution. We need to understand how a group of school friends became these global icons.
How they survived the internal feuds that would have just destroyed lesser bands.
Yes, and why their music has resonated with generation after generation. It's a story of a resistance to categorization, a totally unique sound that has influenced a massive range of artists.
So let's go all the way back to the beginning to understand the environment that produced the sound. Because before they were filling stadiums, they were just students at Notre Dame Middle School in Crawley.
We're talking 1973.
1973. And Crawley is a key part of this narrative. It was a new town in West Sussex, essentially a commuter hub. It wasn't a cultural metropolis like London or Manchester.
No, not at all. It was suburban, quiet, and probably a bit stifling for creative young people.
I would think so.
And that environment of suburban boredom, it's often a catalyst for creativity, isn't it? Yeah. The earliest seed of the band was a one-off school band called Obelisk, formed in April '73.
Obelisk. Yeah.
We had a very young Robert Smith on piano, along with Michael Dempsey, Lowell Tolhurst, and a few others. It was a humble start. I mean, seemingly just school friends killing time.
And from there?
Well, by January 1976, at St. Wilfrid's Comprehensive School, the lineup evolved into a band called Malice.
Malice. I like that.
This iteration featured Smith moving to guitar and Dempsey on bass.
So Malice seems to have been their learning ground.
You could say that. They were rehearsing in a local church hall, playing songs by David Bowie, Jimi Hendrix, and Alex Harvey.
Okay, those are interesting influences. Bowie for the art rock sensibility and Hendrix for the guitar proficiency.
Right. But Malice had a problem that a lot of young bands face. The front man.
The vocalist situation.
It was unstable. A guy named Martin Creasy was their singer for a brief period, but he left in early 1977. So without a charismatic frontman, the band was sort of in a state of flux.
And this is right around the time punk is exploding.
Exactly. And influenced by that, they changed their name to Easy Cure.
Easy Cure.
That name actually came from a song written by Lowell Tolhurst. And this name change, it signaled a shift in direction, moving them a bit closer to the sound that we'd eventually recognize.
And this is where they had their first real collision with the music industry, right? They won a talent competition.
They did. Which, it sounds like a stroke of luck, but it actually led to a very contentious period for them.
How so?
That win led to a recording contract with the German label Ariola Hansa in May 1977. On paper, this looked like a big break.
Of course.
However, this period was crucial because it set the tone for Robert Smith's career-long dedication to artistic control. Easy Cure recorded demos for Hansa, but the relationship soured almost immediately.
The conflict was essentially about identity, from what I understand. Hansa looked at these young men and they saw a potential teen pop group.
That's right. They wanted cover versions. They wanted something palatable, something commercial. They specifically did not want to release the band's original song, Killing an Arab.
A song we will definitely get to.
We will. And the band, despite being teenagers, they just refused to compromise. Smith later recalled that the label thought they could mold them into some kind of pop outfit, but the band simply refused to play covers.
They wanted to play their own material.
Their own material, which was darker and more literary than what Hansa had in mind. So by March 1978, the contract was dissolved.
That's a significant decision for a young band. I mean, to walk away from a record deal requires a lot of confidence, or maybe just stubbornness.
A bit of both, probably.
Yeah.
But it defined them. And following that split with Hansa, Smith dropped Easy from the name. They became simply The Cure.
And there was another change around then, wasn't there?
Yes, Pearl Thompson was dropped from the lineup. His guitar style was quite busy. Technical. It clashed with Smith's growing preference for more minimalist songwriting.
So they were stripped down to a trio. Robert Smith, Michael Dempsey, and Lowell Tolhurst.
And that trio formation was essential for the early Cure sound. It forced them to be sparse. And in September 1978, they found a partner who understood this vision. Chris Perry.
At Fiction Records.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perry signed them, and they finally released Killing an Arab as their debut single in December 1978.
We should definitely address the title of that single, Killing an Arab, because it has been a source of controversy for decades.
It really has. Even back in 1978, it drew accusations of racism.
But that's a misinterpretation of the source material.
A complete misinterpretation.
Yeah.
The song is a direct reference to Albert Camus' novel The Stranger, or L'Étranger.
Right. In the book, the protagonist, Meursault, he shoots an Arab man on a beach in Algiers.
And the song is an attempt to capture the existential detachment of that moment in the book. It was an intellectual exercise, an existential exploration, not a political statement or an expression of bigotry.
They even had to put stickers on reissues, didn't they?
They did. In 1979, they placed stickers on reissues specifically denying the racist connotations to clear up the misunderstanding. And in later years, Smith often changed the lyrics during live performances to further distance the song from any misinterpretation.
Following that single, they released their debut album, Three Imaginary Boys, in 1979. The reception was generally pretty good.
Yeah, the music press acknowledged them as a sharp post-punk outfit. NME called them a breath of fresh air.
But Robert Smith himself was deeply dissatisfied with the record.
Oh, he hated it. His dissatisfaction stemmed from a lack of control. He felt the album was superficial and lightweight. He didn't even like it at the time of release.
He felt he'd lost control of the recording process to Chris Perry and the engineer, Mike Hedges.
That's right, and the cover art. The lamp, the fridge, and the vacuum cleaner. It was meant to be anti-image, but Smith hated it. He felt it made them look like some kind of novelty act.
He wanted something with more substance.
Something that reflected the darker themes he was interested in exploring.
And that dissatisfaction, it seems to have driven him toward a different sound. And there was a specific event that facilitated that transformation.
The tour in 1979.
The tour with Susie and the Banshees.
That tour was instrumental. When the Banshees guitarist quit mid-tour, Smith stepped in to play guitar for them, as well as performing with The Cure.
So he was pulling double duty every single night.
Every night.
Yeah.
And he described playing with the Banshees as this powerful experience, very different from what he was doing with The Cure at the time. The Banshees were atmospheric, heavy, immersive.
It changed his attitude toward stage performance.
Completely. He realized he didn't have to be a kinetic, entertaining frontman. He could stand still and let the music create the atmosphere. This opened him up to darker, more atmospheric possibilities for his own band.
Which leads us directly into the 1980s and the beginning of what is often called the Dark Trilogy.
And the first installment of this trilogy was 17 Seconds, released in 1980.
This album marks the moment Smith took full creative control.
He co-produced it with Mike Hedges, but this time he knew exactly what he wanted. The sound shifted dramatically from the jagged pop of the debut. It became morose, atmospheric, and sparse.
The drums were often motoric and repetitive. The bass was prominent and melodic.
And the guitars were just washed in flange and chorus effects. This album gave them their first UK hit single, A Forest.
A Forest is really the template for the classic Cure sound, isn't it? It's atmospheric, but it's driving.
It absolutely is. And Smith was also fighting against the anti-image the press had assigned to them during that first album era. He felt the media was obsessing over their obscurity, and he wanted to break away from that standard rock format entirely.
So the mood continued to darken with the next album, Faith, in 1981.
If 17 Seconds was a foggy forest, Faith was a gray cathedral. It just furthered that dour mood. The production was incredibly spacious, leaving a lot of room for silence and decay.
And to accompany the tour, they included an animated film called Carnage Visors.
Yes, which is a fascinating detail. This wasn't a standard opening act. It was a film shown in place of a support band.
So what was Carnage Visors like?
It was essentially an art film, quite abstract and unsettling, set to a long instrumental piece by the band. It set a very specific, almost hostile tone for the audience before the band even walked on stage.
It sounds like the atmosphere during that Faith era was incredibly heavy.
Oh, it was. Smith would often leave the stage in tears because he was so absorbed in the persona he was projecting and the themes of loss and faithlessness he was singing about.
Critics describe them as being stuck in a ghoulish rut.
They did. But for the band, it was a genuine expression of their state of mind at the time.
And that rut, or that downward spiral, it culminated in Pornography in 1982. This album is widely considered the peak of their early dark phase.
And arguably one of the darkest albums ever recorded by a mainstream band.
I would agree with that.
Pornography is an intensely oppressive album. It's dense, it's loud, it's chaotic. Smith was undergoing significant mental stress at the time, fueled by heavy drug use and just a general sense of despair.
He described himself during that period as monstrous.
He did. And Simon Gallup, the bassist, noted that nihilism had taken over the band. The opening line of the album from the song 100 Years is, "It doesn't matter if we all die."
And that line effectively summed up their collective mindset. It sounds like a volatile environment bordering on collapse.
It was completely unsustainable. During the 14 Explicit Moments tour in support of the album, they finally adopted the signature look that most people associate with The Cure.
The big backcombed hair, the smeared lipstick, the black clothing.
All of it. It was like a visual armor. But the tension between Smith and Gallup, it reached a breaking point.
They got into a physical fight at a bar.
In Strasbourg, at the end of the tour. Following that incident, Gallup left the band. He and Smith didn't speak for 18 months.
And Smith put The Cure on hold?
He did. He went back to playing with Susie and the Banshees full-time for a while.
At that point, many people, including Smith himself, thought The Cure was just over.
Oh, absolutely. The lineup was shattered, the relationships were broken, and the music had reached a point of zero nihilism. Smith essentially wanted to destroy the band.
But their manager intervened.
Chris Perry, the head of Fiction Records. He was convinced that the band still had a future, but he knew they couldn't continue down that pornography path.
He suggested a total reinvention.
He essentially told Smith to destroy the old Cure to save the entity itself, and this led to a massive pivot in 1982 and 1983.
And this pivot is one of the most jarring transitions in music history. You go from, "It doesn't matter if we all die," to
"Let's Go to Bed."
Exactly.
Smith wrote "Let's Go to Bed" in late 1982 as a stupid pop song. He intended it to be a mockery of the pop format, a cheesy throwaway track that would alienate the goth fans who worshipped pornography.
He didn't even want to release it as The Cure initially.
No, and yet it became a hit. It was catchy, electronic, and fun. Then came the electronic influence, the walk, and the jazz pop of the Love Cats.
The Love Cats is particularly distinct. It's got an upright bass, vibes, a swing beat. It sounds nothing like 100 Years.
Not even remotely. And it became their first British top 10 hit. It was a complete stylistic 180.
It proved that Smith had this incredible ear for melody and pop hooks.
Something that had been buried under all the gloom of the previous 3 albums. That era proved they could be pop stars.
So they proved they could do pop. Then came The Top in 1984. That album feels like a transitional record. It's quite experimental and strange.
The Top is indeed a strange psychedelic album. At this point, the band was effectively Robert Smith and Lowell Tolhurst. But Tolhurst's role was diminishing.
Smith played almost every instrument on the album himself.
He did. It's a very frantic, colorful, and at times disjointed record. But the most significant event around this time wasn't the album itself. It was the return of Simon Gallup.
The return of Gallup is a pivotal moment. The bass is such a crucial part of their sound.
A roadie brokered a reconciliation between Smith and Gallup. Smith was ecstatic to have him back. He declared, "It's a group again."
And with Gallup back on bass, that chemistry returned.
It did. And this solidified the core of the band that would take them to global superstardom.
With Gallup back, they moved into what many consider their commercial golden age. The Head on the Door, released in 1985, seems to be where everything just clicked.
It's where the two sides of the Cure synthesized. The optimistic pop and the pessimistic lyrics. It wasn't schizophrenia anymore, it was a cohesive sound.
It gave us In Between Days and Close to Me.
Right. And the production was polished and radio-friendly without losing the band's identity. This album really opened up the global market for them.
It reached number 59 in the U.S., which was a significant breakthrough for them.
That was huge. They also released the video compilation Staring at the Sea, which helped cement their visual identity in America.
Yeah.
MTV embraced them, and suddenly Robert Smith's face was everywhere.
And they kept building on that success with Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me in 1987. This was a double album, which is always a bold move.
A very bold move.
Yeah.
And it was an eclectic, sprawling double album. It covered everything from funk to psychedelia to straight pop.
And it broke into the U.S. top 40.
It did, and Just Like Heaven became their biggest U.S. hit to date. It's often cited as one of the perfect pop songs of the era.
A truly iconic song.
But while the band was ascending, internal issues were brewing. During this period, Lowell Tolhurst's alcohol consumption began to seriously interfere with his ability to perform. It was becoming a major liability for the rest of the band.
Which brings us to 1989 and the album that many consider their masterpiece, Disintegration.
Disintegration marked a return to a darker, more atmospheric sound, similar to Pornography, but with a sense of grandeur and majesty that the earlier records lacked.
Smith had turned 30 and was feeling a sense of mortality and aging.
He wanted to make a statement. The record label was actually terrified when they heard it. They thought it was commercial suicide after the pop success of the previous two albums.
And paradoxically, this dark, dense album became their commercial peak.
It did. It reached number 3 in the UK and number 12 in the US. And Love Song reached number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100.
Incredible.
The album just tapped into this universal sense of melancholy that resonated with the millions. But behind the scenes, the situation with Tolhurst had become untenable.
The band had to make a very difficult choice regarding a founding member.
The rest of the band gave Smith an ultimatum. Either Tolhurst leaves, or they do. They just could no longer work with him due to his erratic behavior and his inability to play his parts.
So in February 1989, Tolhurst's exit was made official.
Yes. And although he is credited on the album for other instruments, his actual contributions were minimal. This led to a bitter lawsuit filed by Tolhurst in 1991.
He claimed ownership of the name The Cure.
And a greater share of royalties. He eventually lost the suit in 1994, but it was a very sad end to a long friendship and a founding partnership.
But despite the internal drama, they were filling stadiums. They were arguably the biggest alternative band in the world at that moment.
They were massive. They won the Brit Award for Best British Group in 1991, and they followed Disintegration with Wish in 1992.
Wish hit number 1 in the UK and number 2 in the US.
And that album gave us Friday I'm in Love, which is arguably their most universally known pop song. It's just a pure shot of adrenaline and happiness.
A complete contrast to Disintegration.
A total contrast. And Wish was even nominated for a Grammy for Best Alternative Music Album in 1993. They were playing to sold-out crowds worldwide.
So by the early 90s, they are on top of the world. But as the decade went on, the landscape of music changed. You had grunge, Britpop, and things started to shift for The Cure as well.
The mid-90s saw significant lineup changes. Paul Thompson left the band again, and Boris Williams, their drummer, quit.
Williams was a very significant loss. His inventive, driving drumming was a huge part of the Cure sound.
It really was. They were replaced by Roger O'Donnell on keyboards, who returned to the fold, and Jason Cooper on drums.
And they had some success with the song Burn for the Crow soundtrack in '94.
Yes, that introduced them to a new generation of goth fans.
Yeah.
But the 1996 album Wild Mood Swings was a commercial disappointment.
Why do you think that was?
It was a very eclectic album. It had mariachi brass and strange pop numbers, and it just didn't connect with the audience the way the previous records had. It felt a little scattered.
And Smith seemed to sense that the band might be winding down as the millennium approached.
He often felt that way. Leading up to the year 2000, he wanted to make one last serious album to bookend the band's career. That became Bloodflowers, released in 2000.
He viewed it as the final part of a trilogy.
Along with Pornography and Disintegration, it was a heavy, guitar-driven album with no pop singles. And in 2002, they performed these 3 albums in their entirety in Berlin.
The trilogy concerts.
A massive undertaking that reaffirmed the power of their darker material. It proved that they could still command a stage with incredible intensity.
After that, they moved to Geffen Records in 2003 and released a self-titled album in 2004.
That album, just called The Cure, was produced by Ross Robinson. He was known for working with new metal bands like Korn and Slipknot.
An interesting choice.
Robinson was a huge fan, and he wanted to capture the raw, live energy of the band. It debuted in the top 10 and had a much rougher, more aggressive sound.
And during this era, they curated the Curiosa Festival tour.
They did, which featured younger bands influenced by them, like Interpol and Mogwai. It was a great way to showcase their legacy. But the lineup instability returned.
In 2005.
Roger O'Donnell and Perry Belmonte were fired. O'Donnell claimed he found out via fan site, which just highlights the sometimes volatile and poor communication that could exist within the group structure.
Moving into the late 2000s, they released 4.13 Dream in 2008.
That album was originally intended to be a double album, but it was cut down to a single disc. It struggled commercially in the UK compared to their historical standards.
But even as album sales cooled, the band remained a live powerhouse.
Absolutely. In 2011, they did the Reflections concert series, playing the first 3 albums in full. And a significant addition came in 2012 when Reeves Gabrels joined the band.
David Bowie's former guitarist.
The very same. He played with Bowie during the Tin Machine era and through the 90s. His technical skill brought a different texture to the live shows.
And they finally got recognition from the establishment in 2019.
Yes, inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails inducted them.
A fitting choice.
It really was. Yeah. And it was a significant moment because the induction included past members, including Lol Tolhurst, despite all the previous animosity. It was a recognition of their entire history and their impact on the genre.
That brings us to the recent era. And for a long, long time, fans were waiting for a new album. There were promises as far back as 2019.
Oh, the wait was agonizing for fans. Smith said in 2019 that a new album would be out by Halloween of that year. It didn't happen.
And for years, he spoke about a doom and gloom album being in the works. He described it as merciless.
And there was a significant scare in August 2021.
When Simon Gallup posted on social media that he had left the band, he cited betrayal.
Given that Smith had previously said he wouldn't continue The Cure without Gallup, this terrified the fan base.
But thankfully, he was back in the fold a few months later.
Yes, Gallup confirmed in October 2021 that he was still in the band. A collective sigh of relief was heard around the world.
And finally, the wait ended in late 2024.
November 1st, 2024. They released Songs of a Lost World, their first studio album in 16 years.
Produced by Smith and Paul Corkett.
The reception was overwhelmingly positive. It topped the UK charts, their first #1 since Wish in 1992, and reached #4 in the US.
And the album was praised for its cohesive, melancholic sound. It fit perfectly alongside their classic dark records.
It really did. It felt like a culmination of everything they had been working toward.
And as we mentioned at the start, this album brought them major hardware, cementing their status in the 2020s.
At the 68th Annual Grammy Awards in early 2026, they won Best Alternative Music Album and Best Alternative Music Performance for the song Alone.
Alone is a sprawling cinematic track that opens the album. It perfectly encapsulates the themes of isolation and aging.
It was a validation of their continued creative vitality.
Yeah.
They also released a remix album, Mixes of a Lost World, in June 2025, keeping the material fresh.
However, the recent years haven't been without tragedy.
Sadly, no. Former member Perry Belmonte passed away on December 24, 2025, following a short illness.
Belmonte had been a key part of their transition era in the 90s. He played keyboards and guitar.
And he had returned to play with them on the tour in 2022. It was a heavy loss for the Cure family and the fans who remembered his contributions during the Wish and Wild Mood Swings eras.
Looking ahead, Smith has been surprisingly clear about the future. Usually he's quite vague, but he seems to have a roadmap now.
He does. In October 2024, he outlined a specific plan. He mentioned a follow-up album to Songs of a Lost World is effectively finished.
He also discussed a 2025 tour, a documentary scheduled for 2028.
And a planned retirement in 2029. That year, 2029, will mark his 70th birthday and the 50th anniversary of their debut album. It seems he wants to end the band on his own terms.
Closing the circle neatly at the half-century mark.
Exactly.
Before we wrap up, we should talk about their style. They're so often called a goth band, but Smith has always rejected that label.
He hates the label. He feels it's limiting. He once said, to taxi drivers, I'm the bloke that sings Friday I'm in Love.
Right. He sees the band as uncategorizable.
They play Cure music. And that sound is defined by specific technical elements. You have the melodic bass lines, often using a Fender Bassist 6, which is a 6-string bass, tuned an octave lower than a guitar.
You have Smith's distinctive, often strangulated vocals.
And that mix of existential despair and pop sensibility. As Spin magazine put it, they're either wallowing in gothic sadness or licking sticky sweet cotton candy. They occupy both ends of the emotional spectrum.
And their visual legacy is tied so closely to Tim Pope.
Tim Pope directed the majority of their videos, especially during their commercial peak. He understood that Smith's songs were cinematic. He captured the claustrophobia of the band, but also the humor.
The video for
Close to Me, where the band is trapped in a wardrobe falling off a cliff, or Lullaby, where Smith is being eaten by a giant spider. Those videos were crucial in making them MTV icons. Pope ensured that even when they were being weird, they were visually engaging.
And their influence is just massive. It goes way beyond just goth bands.
Oh, it's hard to overstate. You hear The Cure and the Smashing Pumpkins, Blink-182, Deftones, Interpol, Mogwai.
Even modern pop stars like Olivia Rodrigo have cited them as influences.
They were the unlikeliest heroes of the 80s, pale, messy, emotional, and yet they built a legacy that spans genres and decades. They made it okay for outsiders to be successful without compromising their identity.
It is an incredible journey. From the rejected demos of Easy Cure and the fight for artistic control against Hansa,
To the Grammy-winning success of Songs of a Lost World in 2026.
Robert Smith has steered this ship through every storm, every trend, and every lineup change.
He is the only constant. And despite that 16-year gap between albums, they maintained a massive global following. The music simply endures because it speaks to a fundamental human experience of longing and introspection.
It certainly does. We will be watching to see how they execute these final planned years leading up to 2029. It promises to be a celebratory conclusion to a legendary run.
It does indeed.
Thanks for listening.